Hi there, this is Princy. Welcome to Africa4Nuclear. There are plans to unbundle Eskom. Please tell us what are your views on that and what exactly it means to the future of Eskom.
You know, there's a time that I was not sure. Now I am very convinced that I am 100% sure that none of the people who are running Eskom and none of the people in cabinet, none of the people in parliament have read a book called The Symphony of Power. Because if you read that book, which was a coffee table book, was produced during the tenure of Alan Morgan as the CEO and Dr. Ruel Khoza as the chairman. But it looked back in history, because it takes you back in history to be able to know where we're going. So if you look at you read that book, you get to understand why people, the great industrialist that this country has ever had, Dr. Hendrik van der Bijl, effectively designed Eskom in the manner that it is, because he considered very key elements. One of them, that we needed to have a unitary grid because of the geographical spread of South Africa. Even though Eskom was founded during the Union days, we had 4 provinces, which was Natal, Transvaal, Vrystaat, and Cape. Yes, but they still saw the wisdom of having a unitary grid, where we then relied on the abundant coal resources, because they understood that in order to have this country to achieve its economic growth goals, you're going to need energy. And the most reliable, the least cost supply of energy or source of energy was in Mpumalanga, with the coal fields. And that is really what gave birth to the design of Eskom as an integrated utility. The question must be asked, which you most probably not going to get an answer. Is it still appropriate to have Eskom as an integrated utility, as people like Dr. Hendrik van der Bijl had really planned it to be? I know that it is still appropriate, it is still relevant, it is still the best solution for South Africa to maintain Eskom as an integrated utility. Integrated in that you run the transmission lines, I think 33,000 kilometers of transmission lines that spread around this country, plus another 384,000 kilometers of distribution lines. Then you need to have the power generation all in one entity instead of fragmenting it or breaking it apart. Because the moment you break it apart, as they are currently proposing, what we are going to see is even much higher costs to the economy at the time when we can least afford it. So we will lose our competitive advantage. Mark my words, there will be no single company that will invest in developing new shafts in terms of mining, because the electricity costs in the last 10 years have increased by over 510%. People at home now, they know that in 2021, there was a marked difference in terms of their electricity bill between the month of June and the month of July. So the breakup of Eskom brings with it the reliability of Eskom as a utility goes out of the window. On the other hand, the costs go much higher, and therefore electricity becomes out of reach, not only of ordinary people, but out of businesses. So you will not find, whether we're talking about the new economy, the 4IR, as I say, no Amazon will come and run a data center here having to rely on Eskom. No one will go and open a new smelter and having to rely on Eskom. Because Eskom itself cannot rely on the so-called independent power producers, because the electricity they purport to produce is totally redundant, 100% redundant. So, because they have negotiated for themselves a drip and roast. They got government guarantees, and they get paid at the point of converting electricity from their so-called power generation, whether from a solar panel or from a wind power, from when it moves from direct current and you have to put it alternating current to go into the grid. They get paid at that point. Now, for viewers at home, it would be interesting for them to note this. When I place a phone call on my cell phone, there's a thing called an interconnection charge that the cell phone companies, so if I'm with a cell phone provider A and I'm phoning somebody I'm phoning you, you're on cell phone provider B, it means that for that call, my cell phone provider will take it and terminate it. It's called a termination rate. They will terminate it so that it gets to you. That is the only time that a bill is issued for the call that was made and successfully terminated. But in terms of electricity, that question completely is disregarded. It's just that, oh, I hypothetically have got 100 megawatts of power that I have produced for 3 hours in a day, because that's the time when the sun was at the heat index was at the most maximum or most optimal. So I produced 100 megawatts. Whether or not Eskom was able to transport that 100 megawatts and successfully discharge it or deliver it to a consumer, that question doesn't arise. But Eskom, no one will pay Eskom for theoretical nameplate capacity. They get paid for a voltage that they have delivered to a user, whether it's a mine, whether it's a farmer, whether it's all. That's the only time that they get paid. And for whatever reason, Eskom people today don't appear to be interested in this very fundamental. It is fundamental to their financial viability. It is the difference between them remaining in business or going out of business after 100 years of being in business. But they somehow appear to be constrained from asking that very fundamental question. And I don't know why they pay over 52 billion rand a year for electricity that they cannot bill anyone for. It's flabbergasting.
Oh, wow. Then, in conclusion, what is the solution for Africa?
Solution for Africa. You need reliable energy that is the least cost, environmentally friendly. So yes, I agree that, look, I agree more about the environmental friendliness instead of climate change. And I think in some other quarters I've said, yes, I am a climate change denialist, and proudly. Why? I don't believe that human beings can do anything to change the climate. But environment, you can change. For example, let me give you a quick example. It is said that we have polluted our oceans with 1.6 billion, these nappies that we wear on our mouths for the masks. 1.6 billion of pieces of those, they found themselves in the ocean. So the oceans are polluted. That is a question of environment. It's got nothing to do with the climate. It's the environment that we have mismanaged. So I'm saying that you have to have an environmentally friendly solution. And what are the options that we have? South Africa has got at least 200 years of coal that is left. But today we have got technologies that can enable us to use coal in that manner whereby it gives us reliable energy at the least cost in an environment. So where we can have a power plant that has got zero emissions. And we have not been doing enough work. Now, I do work for the Energy and Environment Foundation in India. I'm also on the Technical Advisory Committee. And these are the issues that we look at. And now we know it is 100% possible and feasible to have zero emissions from a coal fire. But also nuclear. Let's look at France. France, it is one of the industrialized nations in the world. And 98% of its power comes from what? From nuclear. So France has demonstrated more than any other nation in the world that it is possible to have a nuclear economy. South Africa, we have a small power station, Quebec, 1,800 megawatts. Today is giving us the least cost electricity reliably, because it delivers electricity at 11 South African cents per kilowatt hour, the cost of production. When you look at all this so-called renewable energy, they are delivering at an average of R2.32 per kilowatt hour. Yet Eskom can only sell that kilowatt hour at the regulated tariff of R1.13, I think, or R1.16. That's what it has come up to. So the issue becomes, why really would our policymakers, why would the politicians, and why would those that are in government be hell-bent on or shy away from really doing that which is appropriate for this nation? And there are two energy sources, I can say that without any fear of error whatsoever, that are appropriate for South Africa, that will enable us to have least cost, reliable supply, environmentally friendly manner. And that is coal and nuclear. No other energy source, it doesn't matter what they call it, is not available. It will never enable us to achieve those energy goals. If anything, is exportation of jobs, because all the other equipment that is made in the so-called renewable is not even engineered in South Africa, it's not manufactured in South Africa, and it doesn't give us any energy. So if you were to ask me, I'm hoping that we will have a breed of leaders in this country that will have the guts to do that which is right for South Africa and put this country to where people like Dr. Hendrik van der Bijl did, ensure that our country is built on energy derived from nuclear and coal. Because we've got that in abundance, we've got nuclear in abundance, we have proved globally that we can do nuclear, so there should be no reason on why we're not going back to the basics, coal and nuclear.
Tshepo, it's been great having you on Africa4Nuclear. Thank you for coming to share your knowledge and passion about energy.
Well, Princy, I would like to also congratulate you for this great initiative. And one can only hope that I think those in the corridors of power will not only hear, but they will listen and take action as we advocate, because at the end of the day, the future of our republic depends on the decisions that they take.
Until next time, ciao.